Привет всем, как дела? So, have you ever wanted to learn Russian, but eventually you gave up because it's too hard? So, in this video, let's talk about the hard things in one side and the easy things you would face and you would have to deal with while learning Russian. So, I actually want to start with the hard things and the challenges you have to deal with them. Then tell you the easy stuff. So the first thing that you would see when you start learning Russian, and it can be really hard, is the alphabet, the Cyrillic alphabet. If you know the Cyrillic alphabet, it would be so much easier to start learning Russian. But if you don't know, you will learn it eventually. If it takes a lot of time, depends on your native language. Actually, for example, if your native language is English, you might find some challenges pronouncing some letters, but for some people it's not that hard. So there are some things that makes the Cyrillic alphabet kind of difficult to start for foreigners. So the first thing you will realize is that there's some letters that they are literally look similar to the Latin letter, but they are really different. For example, the letter P in Latin, we have it in Cyrillic alphabet, but it's not P, it's R. There is a letter that looks like H, and it pronounced as ne in Russian. Yeah, you would find some of these things, they can be challenging to use to them, but you would eventually start to use to see this stuff. So let's talk about cases. Russian has 6 cases, but what are cases? So the cases will change the end of the word by the kind of usage it has in the sentence. And as I said, Russian has 6 different cases. So about the cases, you can also just don't use the cases, but if you just don't use them, it's pretty obvious that you are a foreigner. If you use a wrong case or just don't do it, people are not gonna say, oh, you don't know it. They're gonna understand and they would try to help you. So don't worry about it. So after the cases, there is a thing that we don't have it in English. I don't think if we have it in many languages other than Slavic languages. So in English, for example, when you want to use the verb to go, to come, we don't have so many different verbs for it. I mean, we do have, but they're not so common. We have I'm going, I'm coming, or like I'm about to go, I come, I go, I've been going. These are all the same thing in different tenses. The meaning is not changed, and the general meaning of the verb is not changing. But in Russian, you can't just say I'm going. In Russian, there are so many different verbs that each of them have different meanings. I would also put them in the screen again, which I think it's a really hard thing because you have to use the correct one, because the other verbs, they might sound really completely differently. So now let's talk about the things that makes Russian really easier. There are not so many of them. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but there are not so many, but I think they are kinda do the job. So the first thing you would find is the verb conjugation. So as so many languages, of course, there are verbs that they just don't work like other verbs, and there are exceptions. And we have verb conjugation in Russian as like English. But I guess for me, I think it's really easy. I learned it really quickly because most of the time it works like this. The next thing that would make Russian really easy is that and the word order is really easy. The word order is really easy. Well, basically, Russian has a subject, verb, object, word order. But you can always turn it and change it into different orders. For example, if you want to say I love this, it can be so many different forms. Я люблю это. Это люблю. Я это люблю. Люблю это я. Basically, you can form your sentence as you like, and it doesn't really matter in informal situations. Understand it in, I don't know, 5 minutes. And it's really easy. So I guess the next thing that also it's from the grammar that it's, I think, really easy. So in English we have 12 tenses. Guess how many do we have in Russian? Only 3. We only have 3 tenses in Russian: past, present, and future. And in my perspective, I think they are pretty easy. And of course, unlike English, there is only one present form for saying, for example, the verb to read. There is no I'm reading, I'm about to read, I've been reading, and I read. No, it's only читаю, I read. And it would make Russian a lot easier for people who are like still learning it. So other than grammar, I think it's pretty important to have support from native speakers and people who already speak the language. For some languages, there are no such thing as a supportive community of native speakers to help you. But for Russian, it's actually, I think, one of the best things about Russian is that when you tell people that you've been learning their language or you just want to start learning their language, they will be happy to help you learn their native language easier, or they try to explain to you, they try to fix your mistakes. And I think that's pretty important, and it can actually make your journey a lot easier because of their helps, and you would be able to learn the spoken language a lot easier and find friends. Keep encouraging you to keep studying and keep learning Russian. So I think it's really beautiful that they actually care, and they will help you all the way through learning. About other those stuff. And other than that, because Russian is a popular language, there are so many different resources, there are so many different free resources. So when you want to learn Russian, there are so many resources that you can find online and they're free, and it can actually be really easier to, you know, study it, because for some languages there are not so many resources, and when you like want to study them, there is so much challenge to find a really good or like new resource. So that would also help you. It won't actually directly make Russian easy, but it will make your journey as a learner easier. Okay guys, so I think that was it, and if you have any questions, please ask me and I would be really happy to answer them. So until the next video, see you all.